Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Philly Fan Radio. I'm your host, John Myer, along with Dan Palmieri. And guess what? We have some breaking news. Roger Goodell will start to ban the tush push, blocked field goals, and fake tush pushes for only the Eagles because they seem to be the team that gets it done. Dan, how do you like my intro?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's quite fitting because it probably will happen.
Yep, it'll be on the ballot for next year at the owners' meetings. They will have to ban the fake tush push, the block field goals, all that other stuff, because it seems to be that the Eagles are doing those quite well. And in fact, I'm impressed by the fake tush push because that was awesome. But before we get to that, Dan, let's talk about the Eagles. They won over the Bucs, which the Bucs have been their kryptonite for the longest time now. It seems to feel like maybe an in-season rival, conference rival, whatever you want to look at. It's almost better than, the Eagles versus the Giants. It's the Eagles versus the Bucs. And they just don't they always have a hard time against them. This game was no different. But they won. Great news, 31-25. Dan, are we looking at the tale of two halves again, though?
Yeah, it was more Jekyll and Hyde type stuff yet again. Their offense in the first half looked like it couldn't be stopped. And then the second half, it was like they couldn't get a first down. So there's like no middle ground here. It's either you're blowing them out or you're getting blown out. So it continues to be troublesome, and we'll go into some stats that actually surprised me when I was looking them up. But the inconsistency is the name with the team, regardless of what anybody else is saying. I'm glad that they're winning, obviously, 4-0. But I think we can both agree that this type of winning is not sustainable, nor do I think it's going to continue throughout the entire season. But, there are some troubling signs, but, it's better to improve when you're winning than it is to improve when you're losing. Plus, the fact is that you can look at it this way, in that they're 4-0, and the entire season, let's say that they played 4 good quarters out of 16. So it's pretty damn good.
Dan, first of all, I have to ask the question. I have this in my notes, but I'm going to ask it now. Shouldn't we just be happy they're winning? Everything else we're going to talk about, who cares? Shouldn't we not just be happy that the Eagles are 4-0 and they're winning?
I think we've become spoiled, to be honest with you. Ask me that in the 90s and, maybe the early 2000s, I'd be like, hell yeah, we're winning. We're 4-0. We've been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. We got 2 Super Bowl championships. So now that we're 4-0, I'm sitting here saying, damn, we suck. So we've become
Dan was
spoiled.
over my house, and the first quarter, actually the first half, he was going, hell yeah, Patullo for president. And the second half, he was ready to rip him to shreds.
It's just no consistency. It's just weird. I've seen teams like, they have a great half, and then the second half they'll get a few first downs, but they can't score. I mean, we're talking about you're killing a team, and then you come out in the second half and you can't even complete a pass, And it's so crazy, the swings, and you just want to see consistent football at this time. And I think that, like you said, what's lost in this is that they're 4-0. And let's look at it. They've beaten the Chiefs, who, in Arrowhead, defending AFC champion. They've beaten Dallas, which Dallas sucks, so whatever. And then you go on, you beat Tampa, who's been your kryptonite, in Tampa Bay, okay? And you beat the Rams, who everybody was considering to be a perennial, Super Bowl contender. I'm pretty sure they won the West last year. So it's not like they're 4-0 beating scrubs out there. They are 4-0 playing teams that were picked to maybe go far into the playoffs or meet them in the Super Bowl. So it's hard to gauge who this team is, to be honest with you. There's so many flaws to them, but there's something to be said about the fact that they just keep winning.
I know not last year, but the previous year, it was the same thing. And now I know it does not feel like the same aspect where we're winning, barely winning. some of the games, or Jake Elliott's winning us some of those games near it, and then we just go on a 5-game losing streak at the end of the season. This year is a little bit different, is that we know we're good. We know it's there. We've seen Jalen be in those parts. The positives I got to take from just the first half of this game is, first of all, there were some gimmick plays I absolutely loved. Those little shovel passes, which are considered passes, people. They are not a rush, to Goddard for touchdowns. And the fake tush push. First time we have seen it. Awesome. And now they got to defend against not only the real one, but the fake one.
Yeah, it sets up a lot afterwards because you're so conscious to stuff the middle because you think they're going to do the tush push. And then, like you saw, he just walks in from like 12 yards out. So It puts a seed of doubt in, your opposing team. But like you said, it's, in the first half, they're just gangbusters. In the second half, they're just not. And you brought up like 2 years ago. And I think a lot of people, even myself, it's creeped into doubt, oh God, Brian Johnson. But I think then what they didn't have in 2023, whatever it was, is that they didn't have a defense they could rely on consistently. They were a team that had to win by their offense because their defense was just, let's face it wasn't that great. Now we have a defense that can be really, really good that we can lean on. And that's what we've been doing, is we've been leaning on our defense to get us over these humps. Now, our offense, based on the personnel we have, should be the ones carrying this team. But they're not. And this time we have that defense to carry us. And eventually, I say eventually, we are going to play complementary football where our offense is going to start helping our defense.
Dan, against the Rams, it was like we had a bad first half, and then we talked about this, the invisible, imaginary, reckless slap that Hugh Douglas was speculating, and the second half was great. Then they come out, and in fact, we got to talk about special teams in a couple minutes, but special teams, once again, starts off this game with a touchdown, and this is the way the game is going to go. We think it's going to be turned over. We think it's going to be, and the first half is phenomenal. Jalen is phenomenal. The offense, perfect. I mean, in every aspect of it. And then in the second half, no catches, right? They were 0 for 8 passing. It's hard to see that they were the same team. Like, what did we change? What has changed? Dan, I'm going to put this out there, and you and I talked about it during the offseason. With all the defensive moves and trades that happened, it looked like Swiss cheese. And you and I were concerned we needed to get Zach Bond. We got Zach Bond locked back in. We were concerned that Vic was going to have a tough time with all these defensive players. Now, corners, yes, we're still going to talk about those eventually because that's a little iffy. But defense does not seem to be the problem here. Our offensive line seems to be having a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, so let's look at it this way. The Eagles have built their team over the years based on the trenches. O-line, they're locked up. We can say, other than this year, which we'll go into, they have one of the best O-lines in football. Defensive line, in the past, you got Sweaty, you got Brandon Graham, you got a good rotation. And one of the things we mentioned in the preseason was that, other than their secondary being very iffy, the way to mask a deficient secondary is to get pressure on the quarterback. And we were both saying to ourselves, do they have the horses to get the pressure on the quarterback? And we're seeing it that they simply don't. They're not getting pressure on the quarterback. You saw with, I'm pretty sure it was both of those touchdown throws, the long ones, it wasn't that he ran that route and executed that route. It was a broken play in which it was a scramble drill that just got thrown down the field. So defensively, we need to figure out how the hell to get pressure on the quarterback. And we don't have ends that could get pressure on this quarterback right now. And then offensively, I can't believe I'm saying it, but the offensive line is really holding our offense back. I mean, one of the key statistics was that Saquon last year getting over 3 yards before he's even contacted. This year, we're talking about more than cut in half until he's hit. Pass defense, or pass offense, I saw that, Jalen's doing a good job of getting rid of the ball consistently, but their offense, 46. Now imagine this, 46% of their drives end in 3-and-outs. How the hell does that happen? That's just crazy. And, I saw Landon Dickerson. I think Landon Dickerson's hurt. I applaud him for playing. He's toughing it out, but his overall grade is a 46%, whereas he's usually a 70. Cam Jurgens, and this was a big stat that I saw. This year, 23 pressures have been allowed by Dickerson, Jurgens, and Steen already, and we're in 4 games, whereas 29 were allowed in 16 games last year. So it's really telling as to what the hell is happening up front.
Now, one of the biggest concern you and I have is that so Kevin Patullo in his press conference says we're still trying to figure out our identity, which I don't think we should be figuring anything out. I think we know our identity. We were a run-first team. Mm-hmm. But now when we're trying to run in the first 3 games, let's take the Bucs game out of this one. The first 3 games, Saquon's not getting it. We're going up the gut. There's no holes. But then we watch the other team do the same thing, and they're breaking free up the gut. So we have to do something different. Our offensive line, we're going into the 5th game here. We're playing the Denver Broncos this Sunday at 1 o'clock. A
team that leads the league in sacks.
I wasn't worried until you said that. But no, just think about that, right? So if our identity coming into the season was a run thing, and now Kevin Patullo is saying we're not sure, we're trying to figure it out. What has to happen, and by the way, I am not an NFL coach or whatever it is, this is a radio show about the fan perspective, is that our receivers need to take the pressure off of the offensive line so that they back up a little bit, give Saquon some room, and now we can do the RPO of we can choose where we want to go because our receivers are getting separation. And I'm going to jump in some stats in a few moments here, is that they will now push those back, and now there's time to do it. They don't even have to blitz. They don't even have to, the offensive line will hold it. But I believe you. We've seen Lane Johnson out numerous times already. I think Lane Dickerson, as well as he has good intentions of coming back early, should have stayed out a little bit to recover. And now he's just worsening the injury itself. But I don't feel it's Jalen. I think in previous years we felt it was Jalen not taking it. I don't feel it's Jalen.
I agree with you. You have to be able, as a good coach, to counter what is happening to your team. So when you talk about, you're not able to run the ball, you're going to have to go to the pass. And like you said, let the receivers take pressure off everything else, opening up the run. But how do you get receivers open that don't have enough time to get downfield before Jalen's having to be flushed out? Run some goddamn pick routes. Run some mesh routes. Everybody runs those natural picks that are really offensive pass interference, but they're not called because it's natural. Put guys in motion. You can't play bump and run coverage if a guy is in motion prior to, the snap being called. It's just what I'm seeing is very vanilla. And
I was just about to ask you, Dan, do you feel our offense is too vanilla? Like, literally, you can walk in there and say, oh, they're just going to pass. And, oh, this is going to be a short one. Oh, they're going to run. So they're going to stack the box. I feel our play calling is very vanilla, except for the first half of the Bucs game, which is weird. Why did we go away from that? Why did it not work?
Well, I did, unbelievably, I did watch it again. And what I saw is that the Bucs came out and they were blitzing heavily, but on the back end they were playing zone. So we were able to pick apart the little zones here and there and make it happen. And when it was late second quarter, really into the second half, they were still blitzing, but they were playing man on the back end. And so by the fact that we don't have creativity, and to be honest with you, I don't see our receivers getting open in man coverage, which is something that should happen because they're $30 million receivers, and we've seen them in the past. We've seen AJ, he was ranked number 1 against man coverage pretty much every year. And this year, I can't see him getting open on any route he wants to take. Anybody could say it's Patullo's fault, which I think it is. He is primarily the reason, but at a certain point, it's like, okay, I don't care if you're calling a comeback. I don't care if you're calling just a fly route. I don't care if you're calling a slant. At some point, you have to be better than the corner, and you have to beat him, and he's just not. And it's just, there's so many different layers as to what are the problem, and it's just, this is where I think we can both agree that an experienced offensive coordinator would be able to navigate the waters quicker and get this turned around quicker. And instead we're having to rely on a guy that's kind of learning on the job. And Sirianni, who we've seen, great coach, but doesn't call plays very well. So it's slower. Everything is being slower to transition.
And I'm going to ask the same question I asked in the beginning. They're 4-0. Shouldn't we? Why are we bitching? Why are we complaining about a team that is 4-0 and they're winning?
Because I want more. I'm spoiled. I want more because it doesn't have the feel of a 4-0 team. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But at the same
don't let good get in the way of great. Sorry, Nick Sirianni. I have to.
Yeah. And we're a bunch of flowers, and you got to plant it and watch it grow. And I know.
But think about that, right? So we understand that the Eagles are good right now. We're not. I think there's two things here. One, if the offensive line felt solid, right, there would be more time for Jalen to make the decisions. That's problem number one. Problem number two is the play calling. I think if you're waiting for plays to develop, he has less time because he doesn't have the strong offensive line there to hold him. So he has to make these quick decisions. We saw AJ get target, like 8 times in the second half, and he got 2 of those balls, maybe, or 1. I don't know.
2 catches, 7 yards.
So if you think about this, I think those are the 2 biggest problems. If you had an offensive line that was 100% healthy. We know something's going on with Lane. He had a neck, shoulder, then Dickerson, his knee, Steen. I'm not sure what. First of all, we knew Matt Pryor was not in a good position. Fred Johnson came in there. I think they need to make a decision there. But if you had those, do you feel that the receivers would have more time to get open, or the receivers should just be open, even with the way the line is?
Well, I think that the receivers would have more time to get open if the offensive line, would give more time. And I think one of our biggest problems is that when pressure does come, Fred Johnson's he's done a hell of a job. Its pressures are not coming from the edge; they're actually coming up the middle. So Jalen's trying to step up and kind of navigate through where it's difficult because pressure up the middle is. It's your line of sight, it's everything, so it makes it much harder. But yeah, if he had more time, the routes would develop downfield. But again, we are fans, okay? We can see these things happening. You would expect a coach to see this happening. So if your players are not having enough time to get down the field because your offensive line is not good, what do? Bring a guy in motion, run some counters, run across the middle, mesh concepts. Because if they're going to play you man up, mesh concepts will cause it to muddy in the middle, and then you should have more people open. So there's counters to in-game situations that I don't see happening. It's either Patullo seems to be one of those, we're going to run our offense this way for this game. And if it doesn't work, shit out of luck. And you saw in the first
We'll
half.
lean on our special teams to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, you saw in the first half, too, that they ran a lot of tempo, hurry up. Jalen's making the checks at the line, calling plays at the line.
That's not sustainable, though.
Well, it worked, but when you're in 103-degree heat, you're not going to be able to do that all game. So there's a lot of things that it's all correctable. Let's put it this way, but
you have to be willing to correct it. You have to be willing to accept the defeat. You were talking about a lot of the pressure is coming up the middle. That goes right back to what we're saying, where Saquon is trying to run up the middle. The pressure's there. He's running into walls. This boy could, but I just don't get it. Or the swing routes out to, or the check down to Saquon. He's out in the flat, but somebody's on him already. So you throw the ball and you see a receiver or a corner in 5 yards out. You're expecting Saquon to miss the guy, they'll make him juke, but he has no momentum on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when's the last time that we saw a pitch on the outside? When's the last time that we saw a counter pull where the guard pulls across the face of the line and blocks out left? That was where he broke like 60% of his long runs last year, was that you'd get the Mekhi Becton pulling on the left side and he'd hit out and he'd go. Well, when's the last time that we saw an outside run?
Aren't we watching some of those old play calling? I'm sorry, Kellen Moore was a really good offensive coordinator for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you want to make your own identity versus the Eagles' identity that you're a good offensive coordinator, but you have to do right for the team and accept that some of your decisions suck.
Yeah, and I thought what Kellen Moore said last year was perfect. He said they asked him in preseason, what kind of offense do you run? And he looked at the cameras and literally said, I don't run a particular type of offense. I tailor my offense to my players, and we go from there. Yep. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You play to the strength of your players. You don't force your players into playing a certain way that they might not be comfortable with. And I really think they should just go back to the tape last year and look at those concepts that they ran and try to run some. I mean, this whole running out of the pistol thing, which they run it 75% of the time, so everybody knows you're running out of the goddamn pistol. It ain't happening. Under center, they run 64% of the time, so everybody knows under center you're going to run the ball. When they're in shotgun, I think they said that they're running 82% of the time. That's not good. Everybody knows it, and you got to switch it up. And it's frustrating because this team could be so much better. This team can just blow out people and then in the fourth quarter put in Tanner McKee and just sit back.
You were hoping for that this past game, the way they were going
in
the first half.
I was. And I wish for it every game because, injuries are happening, they're piling up, and, this team should be blowing people out. Now the other team does get paid too, but let's face it, our team is better than every other team in the league. On paper, and should be on the field.
I agree with you. And in fact, Dan, let me read you some of the stats. They're not very impressive for this game for the Eagles. 112 passing yards, 88 rushing yards, so a total of 200 yards. Now, Dan and I have said time and time again, when is winning secondary to stats, right? I just think our rushing yard, we have great on both sides of the ball. Dan, you and I were talking earlier this week, and I was talking about a separation score, and I forget who does it. I'm trying to find out where it was, but it was on a video I was watching, and it talks about, and we're going to talk about AJ now because we have to talk about his tweet, right? Everybody talked about it all week, and we saw his press conference that he came out and said, I got emotional. Dan, you can dive into that in a second, but going on to the separation score for our receivers. Now, imagine our line was holding up, and in some cases we had some great, Jalen had time in the pocket. It said that A.J. Brown in the last, I think the stats went back for 4 years, whatever it is, and it's a score from 0 to 100, and he's been anywhere between mid-80s to 90s in his separation score. What that really means is from the time that Jalen releases the ball, where the receiver is at, and how much separation he has from the opponent in order to catch the ball. Whether he catches it or not, that's a separation score. So he's been scoring really high. This year alone, already in the first 4 games, he's scoring a 52%. Take that into account of when you look at and listen to AJ's tweet that came out. When did it come out? Sunday night?
Yeah, he tweeted right after the game.
Right after the game, right? Hopefully
It's
it
like
was
6 p.m., I think.
Okay, so it wasn't plenty of time for him to touch a phone after and not get fined by the NFL because they've been fine heavy on a couple of things. But if you think about it, his tweet, you guys can look it up. Basically, it says, if I'm not wanted, just stay silent, basically, or if I'm not like whatever it is. Dan, his response on, was it Wednesday or Thursday? Yes, it?
Wednesday.
What the players? Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday was their practice, and he said after.
Talk to me about this tweet, how you feel about it, and his response to the media now that he's had 3 to 4 days to digest and calm down.
So I'm a person that I agree with him in this situation where...
You agree with his tweet or his frustration?
No. I agree with his frustration. I think he's an asshole for tweeting. I don't understand this whole generation of tweeting, everything. Because, he comes out in his thing and says, I apologize, I was emotional, I wasn't thinking. You're sitting there on your phone. You got plenty of goddamn time to think what you're sending. Why do you need to tweet these things? I don't know what his end game was with that. He's a smart guy. There was an end game to it. Whether or not it's to basically put Kevin Patullo's ass on the fire. And he said he wasn't calling out anybody specifically. That's BS. You say you're not getting listened to. You're calling somebody out for not listening to you. But I agree. I don't agree with the whole, you got to feed me the ball, because then it becomes predictable. But I agree that changes had to be made in the offense and that they have to improve. It's like last year when they asked him what the problem is. He says passing. And then it led to speculation. It
was right before the Steelers game until they blew out the Steelers of all their passing.
Yeah, and I don't agree with the way he's handling things. You are a leader. What you do is...
You're a captain, no less, too.
Mm-hmm. You go behind closed doors and you say something. You get Jalen, you get Sirianni, you get whoever you want in behind closed doors, and you say, listen, this is what's happening. The offensive line did it last year after the bye. They all went into Sirianni's offense and said, it's time to start running the ball. And that's what happened. You take these things up internally. Why? What is to gain by opening your mouth and putting it out in the public? Because then instead of the storylines being, and it was on Sunday Night Football on NBC, they're not talking about the game, that they're even going to broadcast. They're not talking about the Eagles beating the NFC South champion.
They're not talking
Tampa.
about them being 4-0 either.
No, they're talking about the fact is, oh my God, AJ Brown's unhappy, which led to everybody nationally saying, okay, he's going to be traded. Is he going to start a locker room war? Is he going to do all this? So my problem with it is he tweeted, he put out public, but also he could have personally come out after he had this time to reflect or whatever the hell he said he did, which was a PR stunt. They told him what to say. He could have came out on Monday and said, listen, I made a mistake. He could have tweeted. He likes to do that all the time. He could have put out a tweet that says, I made a mistake. This is what happened. I don't want to trade. This is where I'm home. And you know what? The news cycle would have stopped. But instead, he let it drag on till Wednesday, and then the speculation built and built and built until the point that everybody's talking about an implosion coming. And it's just, great player. He is a diva, which wide receivers are. I don't think he's a huge diva, because we've, in Philly, seen a huge diva. But at the same time, you don't wear a captain's patch for nothing. You have to lead by example, and that's not the example you set.
One of the biggest problems I see, not only with that tweet and coming out publicly, is they've taken the spotlight away from the team of being 4-0, right? I mean, there was going to be talk anyway, the tale of two halves, that they, dominated the fake tush push, the gimmick plays as they were doing a little bit, and then all of a sudden, second half. I think in the second half, when they were trying to feed AJ the balls were not there where he needed them to be. In some cases, right? But AJ is usually a player that's going to grab some of those. That's where the offensive line should have held up. We know there were some breakdowns in that. The biggest problem I see with coming out publicly in that is that they're going to force feed the ball and mistakes are going to happen just to shut them up. And that is not a team play.
No, and I think it reflects badly personally on him because after the game, Jalen was asked, about the game, and he said, we need to play better. Everybody needs to play better, but we don't care how it looks. We won the game. That's what we're doing. You ask Saquon the same exact question. He says, I don't care if I rush for 5 yards or 500 yards. I don't care how it looks. We're winning. AJ Brown tweets.
I just like to win.
Yeah, AJ Brown's tweeting, and it makes him sound selfish that even though they're winning, I'm going to still bitch because I'm not being listened to and not getting the ball. You're winning. Why? Bring that shit up when you're losing. When you're winning, you take everything
remember what he
behind
said after the Super Bowl? They were
that he wasn't satisfied.
Yeah, he's like, I forgot about it 2 days later. I get my kicks out of dominating the other team and running all over them.
And that's great. That is what we want to hear. We don't want to hear that you're complacent, but at the same time, don't come out and stir shit up because there's nothing that's good that's going to come from it.
I agree. I heard some speculation from Miami fans. Tyreek Hill obviously out.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
He'll be lucky to come back for,
that was
preseason.
Nasty.
It was definitely a very horrible injury. I don't wish that on anybody. I hope they take down the video of seeing that one. But, hey, if you guys don't want AJ, we'll take him. And it's not that the Eagles don't want him. And, in fact, the Eagles would love to get more passing game involved. If it's there, it's there. I think Jalen is doing an excellent job of protecting the ball. I think he does need more time at the line. I think we need a better or healthier line in some instances. I understand it was definitely a very hot day. It's going to be nice and warm come Sunday in the 80s. It's going to be a perfect weather for a game this Sunday against the Broncos. But I think I agree with you. As a captain, he should hold a higher standard. Would he like it if somebody else came out and said, well, if AJ caught the ball? No, it would be better behind closed doors.
And, it goes back to, your memory, meaning AJ, should be pretty fresh at the fact that, you're talking about you're not wanted and whatever. It makes you sound like you aren't happy in Philly. Well, you were putting up some decent stats. You were the number one guy in Tennessee, but you're getting your ass kicked every year. Is that what you'd rather have? I mean, look at Tennessee, Saquon.
Did you hit the Super Bowl? Did you go?
Yeah. So, no.
What was your record? So,
exactly.
Just like Dan, you said this. What do you want? You want 150 yards per game, but losing?
Yeah, he wants both, which sometimes it's not feasible.
Well, he doesn't want the losing, but he wants to win.
Well,
but
right.
In some cases, you're going to get that, and I think it does fall on Kevin Patullo and the line, but it also falls on AJ in his separation factor. We watched the game. He was being mauled out there in most cases.
Well, he's being mauled, but I also saw, and, Sirianni could say all he wants. I saw it. I don't know if you saw it. There was lack of effort. He was disinterested out there. On that one comeback route where usually he comes back and gets the ball, he stopped his route. And then he basically just pouted over to the sideline. You can't expect.
You got to sell it. You got to sell it every single time, whether you're getting it or not, because if you're not selling it, the team sees that, the defense sees that, and they're not going to play you. They're going to play man knowing it's not coming to you because you're not selling it.
Well, even if, the ball was coming to him, but he seemed disinterested. He wasn't putting for full effort out there, and that can't happen. You're a pro. Get off your ass, and everybody nationally. And one of the things that I really wanted to say on this one, Chad Johnson put out that he was like screaming at the top of his lungs, this is what he does for a living. This is his, this is how he earns his paycheck, blah, 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 blah. Well, and he's like, he's playing for money, and, he wants his, because what's going to become of him when, if he doesn't have the stats, he's going to not make as much money. He got paid. Yep. What the hell are you coming out of? He got paid. He got a championship. You're not playing for your next contract anymore. You're playing to honor your current contract, which is brand new. So he's locked up until 2030. So it's not like he's going to get an extension anytime soon. So he's not playing it's not like he didn't get paid and he needs to put up those 1,000 yards so that he does get paid. So his actions are contrary to what actually is going on, and he really needs to think. He needs to be more mature. That's what it comes down to.
I wonder if AJ plays fantasy football and selected himself. He's not.
He sure as hell didn't win that league then.
Maybe he had to bench himself.
Yeah, I would.
Hey, Dan, I know you have a couple of stats here to go through the rankings of the first 4 games for the Eagles. How about you run through those, and then we're going to go back. We're going to look at what our score and predictions were for the Bucs games, and then Dan and I are going to predict the Broncos game.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. They have the 30th ranked offense overall. That's just crazy to think about. 31st pass, 16th running, which a lot of that is Jalen right now. And I think for the offense, it's pretty indicative of what we've been seeing. They're not putting up yards, either whether it be over the air or, on the run. And I think the defensive stats are a little misleading, because if you hear these stats, you think, oh, wow, their defense sucks. 18th overall, 11th against the pass, and 24th against the run. I don't see a defense that's that bad. I see a top 10 defense, so I'm not really looking and putting much stock in those ratings for the defense. But for the offense, you got all those personnel, and you're putting up those kind of rankings in the NFL, then
but aren't they
holy
just
shit.
Stats, and they're winning? They're 4-0.
They are, but eventually those stats. You're such an ass. Throwing my words in my mouth. Yeah. When did winning become the secondary stat? Yeah. I know.
Actually, those stats will catch up to you as a team.
Exactly. Yeah. Eventually, they're going to catch up to you. This is not a sustainable way to win. No. And kudos to the special teams for carrying our asses, pretty much.
They did for the last 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, the offense is not very fun to watch right now, and it's disheartening.
They were in the first half. Don't get me. And the second half of the Rams game. How about we put the 2 halves together and have a complete 4-quarter game of the offense, defense, and special teams are doing a great job. Just kick ass. I mean,
yeah, and this week is not really a good week for you to get right, because this is a hard ass defense that you're about to play, and this ain't no cakewalk. So you're gonna have to bring your A game against this one, because if you falter against them even a little, they're gonna take advantage.
Exactly. Okay, everybody. Last week, let's talk about the score from last week. It was 31-25. All right. And if you haven't been listening on our discussion, the Eagles are 4-0. Right. Though they scored 14 points in the first quarter, the first 7 was thanks to Latu, who blocked a punt.
Who I never heard of.
Yeah, we were like, who is that? And Sydney Brown ran it in, and kudos to Sydney Brown. I mean, I don't think we have much more to add. So anyway, special teams, great job on that. 14 points in the first quarter. They got 10 in the second, and then they got 7 in the third and nothing in the fourth. They actually had a very stalled offense in the second half. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that enough. So anyway, last week, Dan had them at 27-17, and I had it at 33-21.
Oh, you're closer.
I think I won that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did.
Okay, so Dan, we're going into the Broncos game right this weekend. It is at 1 o'clock. Well, where's my notes from the previous one on what we got? I got notes everywhere. Hold on.
I'm pretty sure we both picked it as a win.
Well, we definitely picked. So we picked the Denver as a win. We picked Tampa Bay as a win. We picked the Rams as a win. You picked KC as a loss. Just putting that out there. Okay.
Yeah.
So far, I'm winning. Just letting you know.
Winning.
We did pick it. And what was the what was the score the previous week that we did for the Rams? Man, where the hell are all my notes? Man, I should actually keep this somewhere where I just got all kinds of stuff here. Probably on the backside of one of the notes. Blah, blah. Anyway, so... Nope, not that one. Oh, here it is. Last week, well, for the Rams, Dan, you were 30-27. I was 35-31. This week we have to pick our stuff for the Broncos. Dan, what is your prediction for this game?
I'm gonna go 27-23. I do think Philly gets it, but I don't think it'll be a runaway by any chance. And I think that a lot of the lingering questions that we've had about their offense are still going to exist, because if there's one defense that is not a get-right game for your offense, it's Denver.
Yeah. So... I don't know. I'm very torn from them having an explosive offense and getting shit right this time to do it. I will probably... And they are at home, which is a great thing. That's a huge advantage for them.
Denver coming off of a Monday night game, having to travel cross country.
Yeah. Dan, 35-27.
You just love those high scores.
Hey, I just picked the other one, right? 33.
If they put up 35 points against Denver, then I think we're going to feel a lot better next week.
I think, well, here's the thing. You remember the Steelers game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, throw the ball. And they threw it, and then Jalen came into press conference and goes, that's what you wanted to see, right? That's what you wanted to see. And that was it. That was the... So, while I don't think he's going to force feed AJ the ball, I think Kevin Patullo has been listening to everybody talk all week long about the lack of it. And I think they might make some changes on the offensive line. I know Goddard has been limited in practice, but he's a flip of a coin every week anyway. So we got Calcaterra. He's actually pretty good if we force feed him the ball, whatever it is. I do think they need to get the receivers involved and separation. I think they need to be a little bit more creative in their stuff, but not remake everything, because you ain't got time for that shit. So that's my prediction, 35-27.
Well, so answer me this, though. A.J. Brown, who hasn't gotten separation against pretty much anybody, is going to have Patrick Surtain travel with him. How the hell is he going to pull that one off? We're going to have to see vintage A.J. Brown if he's going to get any catches or any targets at all in this game.
Hey, let me ask you this question. You know, Jalen doesn't throw over 20-plus yards. Barely. Very infrequent does he launch someone's. There are some ones that he will do, and they've been absolutely great. Why are we not going off slot, slant route, throw the ball, let AJ do his shit? Why are we not doing 8-yard clips, 6-yard clips? I really think we don't need to be a deep threat all the time. You get them, bowl them in close, and then you go out wide, and then you establish some of the run. Why are we not doing just some of those?
Well, it goes back. We need to bring people in motion. Our guys are not winning off the line against press coverage, so you need to bring them in motion so that they can get that separation. And we're just not doing that. Again, I think we all said it with Brian Johnson the entire year. Who was the offense? It was Steichen who was the offensive coordinator prior, right?
Yep.
With Steichen, we were one of the highest teams to run motion pre-snap. Brian Johnson comes. We don't run motion for shit. And everybody's like, why are we all standing still? Brian Johnson's out. Kellen Moore comes in. We're amongst the NFL leaders in pre-snap motion. Holy shit, we're good again. Now we come back to this year. We're down in the bottom half in pre-snap motion, and it's not a coincidence that our offense is not thriving. So the adjustments are there to be made. I don't get why we as fans sit here and dive into this, and we know, I'm not saying it'll fix everything, but we've seen what happens in the past, and we kind of see what should be done. I don't understand why coaches who watch the game 17 times don't see the same thing. It's like they're trying to reinvent the wheel when it's the old adage of everybody last year was saying, why are we not passing the ball? Blah, 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 blah. Why would we pass the ball when they don't stop our run? Why? It proved that you can stop it. Well, they never stopped us last year. So why did we come into this year playing a different style of offense when they proved that they couldn't stop us the previous year? Run it until they stop it.
Why didn't they just stay with what works? Mm-hmm. Why change it up? Why reinvent all this stuff?
And if it doesn't work, then you know what? Then you put in these wrinkles and everything. But don't change everything in the beginning, because now it makes it harder to backtrack.
Yep, exactly. All right, everybody, we got to wrap this up. This has been the Philly Fan Radio. I'm your host, John Myer, along with Dan Palmieri. And Dan, I'm going to let you do the closing remarks.
Well, the closing remarks are that I think that we should have a Kevin Patullo Appreciation Day. That's what we should do. An entire show on Kevin Patullo, because like you said, I loved him in the beginning. I hate him in the second half. And I'm iffy. I think I'm going to need some Kevin Patullo love this weekend. So, yeah. T-shirts will be made. You're a guy that's
going to give him flowers and then take it back and chop the heads off.
T-shirts will be made with the Kevin Patullo heart. We're going to do it.
That's what we should do. Pending the outcome of this game, I think the next home game, you and I should wear I Love Kevin Patullo shirts down to the link.
Or if he kills it out there, I'll wear a shirt that says Kevin Patullo's bitch right across front.
Kevin Patullo for president along with Dan.
Yeah, exactly. Who needs a government shutdown when I got Patullo?
All right, everybody. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify, because guess what, Dan?
We're out of here. Go
Birds.